Hi, I'm Paul Pfeiffer, the CFO at ATS. Hard to believe, but we're halfway through 2024, so now I'm back to talk to you about the current state of the truckload transportation industry. Last time in January, I had 4 key takeaways. Well, I'm probably slightly more right than wrong on many of those predictions, but then again, this downturn has dragged on much longer than I would have expected or anyone would like. So I'm going to jump right into the 4 key areas: demand, supply, cost, and rates. First, from a demand standpoint, well, if my base case was a technical recession starting at about the midpoint of 2024, then I expected a depressed level of economic demand all the way through 2024. And while it looks like I'm probably wrong on the technical recession starting the midpoint of 2024, the US economy has slowed as GDP in first quarter shrank to 1.3%, and in all likelihood might be slightly higher, but it'll still be in a similar range in Q2. A couple of things that I do look at in addition to the GDP are inventories, and those seem to have at least stabilized and started to match the demand and the buying patterns of the consumer. However, the areas of business fixed investment, industrial production, and manufacturing are all either down on a quarter-over-quarter basis or in contraction territory. One of the metrics that we use in truckload transportation for the amount of freight traveling through the US is ATA's for-hire truck tonnage index. And when I look at that, it's down year over year, 13 of the last 15 months. And in the last couple of months, even though there's been slight increases, they're on fairly easy comps. Net effect of all of this is that I do expect a continued depressed level of economic demand all the way through 2024 and likely through the first half of 2025. So now let's look at the second area, which is supply. Capacity has continued to exit the market, and while we don't have a perfect metric across our industry, some of the things that I look at are load board activity, DOT authorizations, as well as revocations, trucking bankruptcies, brokerage bankruptcies, as well as I look to the public companies in our industry who report active truck counts and broker carrier counts. And in those last 2 metrics, those 2 areas are down double-digit percentages on a year-over-year basis. So much so to the point that I believe we've now reached basically that equilibrium point where the supply of trucks is about equal to the depressed level of demand that's traveling through the US. So now let's go to that third category of cost. On the cost side, this has been the most challenging part for our industry over the last 18 to 24 months, and it's no shock to the small carriers and drivers that are out there. The ATRI, the American Transportation Research Institute, recently published a study that shows that the cost to operate a truck is at a new high. Since 2020, the cost to operate a truck has increased between 37 and 38%. And likely for those drivers and smaller carriers, it's even higher than that because they don't have the purchasing leverage in insurance, fuel, tires, etc. So now I'm going to go to the fourth category. What does this all mean for rates? Well, as I told you back in January, Q1 and Q2 of 2023, spot rates bottomed out, and they've been bouncing along the bottom ever since. When I look at the first half of 2024 and the contract bid season, a couple of notable items. First is that the bid season ended abruptly and much quicker than both I expected as well as what the industry normally sees. In addition to that, we saw several bids throughout the industry that were delayed once, twice, multiple times, or even just outright canceled. What this tells me is that the contract rates are basically near or at that bottom point and ready to inflect upward. At minimum, what I expect carriers will do is start to exercise choice and selection discipline on the freight that they choose to haul, and rate will have a heavier influence on that going forward. Further, I do expect that some volume will start to shift over to the spot market side, and we'll start to see spot rates tick up. Now the key question is, look, how long is that going to take? Given the fact that I underestimated the length of this down cycle to begin with, probably several months where spot rates and contract rates stay in relative alignment with each other, especially if there's not any significant or any lift from an economic demand standpoint. So now, what are my final thoughts as we go into the back end of 2024? Well, a couple of things. One is that, look, I expect shippers are going to start to collapse around a smaller set of carriers and brokers in their stable of vendors. Two, let's not forget that service remains another differentiator in addition to rates in a service industry. And lastly, most of the shippers buy multiple modes of transportation. And so keeping with a stable carrier base that has a broad portfolio of solutions is a good bet, as always. That's all I have for now. Thank you, and have a safe 2024.